Hello and welcome to this new video lecture in which we're going to talk about a very common problem that a lot of people face after getting an interview call, and that too of getting an anxiety during the interview. So how can you control your anxiety during an interview? That's what we're going to talk about in this particular lecture. So this lecture, as we're saying, is basically to help you control anxiety during an interview and help you thus find you a job through networking and hunting. So let's start by first talking about what causes anxiety during the interview. What do you think causes anxiety during the interview? See, the interview situation, as you see here, is has a lot of questions, and you have someone asking all those questions in a rapid fire round, starting with tell me about yourself, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, where do you hope to be, what is the most difficult situation, why do you want to work? So all these questions that come to you in a rapid fire round, probably, and with a very straight face or maybe a stern face interviewer, as you see on the right hand side. And you obviously get perplexed and you build that anxiety. So this it's a set of questions and the personality, who is doing an interview for you and yourself. These three factors. There's nothing else. Because interview consists of being asked certain questions by an interviewer to you. So the causes of anxiety have to lie in these three areas, right? So let's look at what causes anxiety. See, the anxiety, what is cause anxiety is obviously it's an unpredictable situation. You are going for an interview, you do not know what is going to happen. You don't have any fixed questions that will be asked. And and there can be follow-up questions. And since you do not know what questions will be asked, who will be asking, what is his personality or her personality, what is his tone, and finally, what is the outcome of this interview that you want to very much get. So that is the unpredictability of the situation. That is, as I see, the foremost thing that causes. Imagine an interview in which you know the interviewer, you know the questions, and you are well prepared. Would you have anxiety? Obviously not. Then the second thing that causes is the performance pressure. In an interview, there's only 1% or 2% probably get selected, right? Now, even if you know all the questions and answers and people, and if you only one out of, let's say, 1,000 people get selected and 100 are being interviewed, that will cause performance pressure for you to do your best and keep worrying about other people that are going to come for the interview. So that performance pressure causes the interview. Then the self-doubt. Now, if you're not fully prepared, if you're not sure about the answers that you will give, that causes stress again. I don't know whether I'll be able to answer all the questions. That's the kind of response you might get. Social evaluation. How will the interviewer like me? Especially if there are more interviewers than one, whether they will like you or not, how will they judge you? And lack of preparation. If you're not prepared, you don't know what questions to ask, and you have not prepared enough, that causes stress again. I really don't know whether I will be able to answer all these questions, kind of thought comes in your mind. Your communication skills, if you are not sure of how can you communicate well, that causes stress. And the body language, will your body language and the timing and logistics, and that ultimately is the fear of rejection. I may have prepared everything and I may be able to have everything, but I have this nagging fear of rejection that causes me to get stressed. So let's start talking about the fear first. So how can you handle the fear? You have to do some self-talk. Self-talk meaning you have to talk to yourself. And let's look at the five things, five tips that I have for you that you can do. This is given by one of my interns who helped me make this video. So it is his take on how can you get over the fear of rejection in this interview. So what he says is the first tip is to take that first. You have to start by saying you should be afraid of the interviews, because interview is a situation. It is not life and death for you. It's not, you're not going to get killed in an interview. What will worst happen is you will get rejected. So get over your fear of rejection by talking to yourself, saying I won't be. You get into positive self-talk. Say to yourself, I am not afraid of this interview. What can he or she do to me? So the first tip is to don't get afraid of the interview. Second thing that you should do is tell yourself, this interview is not the end of your life. This is not the end of your life. I mean, life will continue. It's one episode of your life. If you do well, fine. If you don't do well, the life will continue, right? So tell yourself that. Third thing that you can do is to take this interview as a test, as an exam. And again, tell yourself the worst that will happen. One way to handle anxiety is to think about the worst. So tell yourself the worst that will happen is that I will fail in this test. So if I fail in the test, I will learn from this and I will prepare for another test. And someday I will pass these tests. The fourth thing that you can do is to tell yourself you're afraid of the interviewer. Say that the guy who's going to take the interview is not a god. He and even if he's a god, I shouldn't be afraid of him, right? So tell yourself that the guy who's going to take interview is not a god, and I will be able to talk to him nicely. And finally, don't be afraid of the questions that you will be asked. Now, how to not be afraid of the questions? Let's take a look at a few more things that you can do. So the way to control anxiety is basically start with being prepared. You know, it is an uncertain situation. So, and you need to eliminate the unknown. So the best way is to understand by asking the questions about, fine, what kind of questions may I be asked? And the best way that you can do is we have described it in another of our courses called How to Prepare for an Interview, the link of which we are giving in this lecture. You need to prepare, ask for the job description and accordingly make a list of questions that you should prepare so that you can minimize the unknown that you have. Then you need to plan. You need to plan your dress. You need to plan what you're going to say, how you're going to arrive at a situation, etc. etc. Then you need to rehearse. You need to get mock interviews. So take this particular job description, go to a seasoned interviewer like me or someone else and say, hey sir, can you do some mock interviews? I have this interview coming up and this works beautifully. I did for one of my Udemy students and he could crack his interview well. And ultimately it's about matter of eliminating unknown, right? So you eliminate the unknown by knowing about the company, knowing about the job, and if possible, knowing about the interviewers. Arrive at other sources of anxiety like arriving late, so arrive early with ample time and relax, right? And finally tell yourself that this interview is a conversation. There's nothing to get afraid of about. The guy sitting in the interview chair is not a god, and it is a test. I'm going to do my best to pass this test. If I pass, wonderful. So what I can and tell yourself what you can control is your effort and the conversation that is to the point and that answers the question of the interviewer. More than that, you really cannot control anything and tell yourself that I can't worry about things that I cannot control. I can only prepare for things and I've done enough. So have that conversation and treat the interview as a conversation and you will do fine in the interview. So thank you so much for watching this video on how to get over your interview anxiety, how to control your anxiety. I have a wonderful course on how to do well in your interview. I am going to leave a link uh, in this lecture for you to take a look at it. See if that helps you, and if that helps you, wonderful. Go and do and take your interview fearlessly and without anxiety.